The morning light seeped through the sheer curtains, casting warm patterns on the wooden floor of our bedroom. I blinked against the brightness, my senses awakening to the soft chirps of birds outside. But as the sunlight kissed my skin, a chill settled in my heart. I turned my gaze towards Harold, who lay beside me, his once vibrant face now etched with the marks of age and illness. His chest rose and fell rhythmically, yet I could sense the fragility lurking just beneath the surface. The man I had loved for so many years was fading, and with each passing day, the weight of his decline pressed down on me. Memories flooded my mind, vivid snapshots of our life together. I recalled the laughter we shared, the adventures we embarked upon, and the quiet evenings spent in each other's company. We had built a life filled with love, but now it felt as though a storm was brewing on the horizon, darkening the joy we had cultivated. My stepdaughter, Clarisse, had always been a source of tension between us, her presence like an unwelcome shadow. I could feel her eyes watching us, evaluating, waiting for the moment to pounce. As I shuffled into the kitchen, the morning ritual of preparing breakfast offered a semblance of normalcy. I moved around the familiar space, the scent of brewing coffee filling the air, a comfort that felt increasingly distant. The clinking of dishes and the sizzle of eggs on the stove were a lullaby, but my mind raced with thoughts of Clarisse. I had sensed her discontent, her disdain for me growing like a weed in a garden. How could she not see the love I had for her father? How could she not understand the sacrifices I had made to care for him? The shrill ring of the phone shattered my focus, and I rushed to answer it, my heart pounding in my chest. It was the family lawyer, his voice steady yet somber. As he delivered the news, my world tilted on its axis. Clarisse had filed for Harold's interdiction, claiming I was unfit to care for him due to my declining health. The words reverberated in my mind, each one a dagger aimed at my heart. Shock coursed through me, followed by an overwhelming sense of betrayal. How could she do this? Did she not understand the depths of our bond? In that moment, a fire ignited within me, an unyielding determination to fight for Harold and our life together. I could not let Clarisse tear us apart. I thought of the countless hours I had spent nursing Harold through his ailments, the late-night conversations filled with love and reassurance. I would not allow her to strip away our story, our shared history. Later that day, I found myself sitting with my closest friends, the weight of my troubles spilling from my lips like a torrent. As I recounted the unfolding situation, their expressions shifted from concern to fierce support. They rallied around me, offering words of encouragement and practical advice. Together, we began to brainstorm ways to gather evidence against Clarisse, to expose her motives and questionable past. I felt a sense of empowerment growing within me, a realization that I was not alone in this fight. The love and loyalty of my friends fueled my resolve, igniting a fire that had lain dormant for too long. I would not be a victim, I would be a warrior. The thought of confronting Clarisse, of peeling back the layers of her deceit, sent a thrilling shiver down my spine. I was ready to reclaim my life, to defend the sanctity of my marriage and protect the man I loved. As I looked around at the supportive faces surrounding me, I felt a wave of gratitude wash over me. Despite the storm brewing on the horizon, I was not without allies. I was armed with knowledge, determination, and a fierce love that would not be silenced. The battle ahead would be difficult, but I was prepared to face it head-on, ready to unearth the truths that would safeguard my family. Little did I know, the journey ahead would uncover secrets darker than I could ever imagine, and the stakes would rise higher than I ever anticipated. As I delved deeper into Clarisse's life, a sense of urgency pulsed through my veins. Each piece of information I uncovered felt like a stepping stone leading me closer to the truth, a truth that could potentially unravel the tangled web she had spun around our family. My heart raced as I sat at my kitchen table, surrounded by cluttered notes and printed documents. I had made it my mission to expose her lies, to fight for Harold's dignity and our shared life, which she seemed hell-bent on destroying. The first lead came from a chance encounter with an old friend of Clarisse's, someone who had drifted away after a failed business venture they had attempted together. I listened intently, absorbing every word she shared, her voice tinged with regret as she recounted the fallout. Clarisse had been the driving force behind the venture, but when it collapsed, she had vanished from the scene, leaving her partners to bear the brunt of the financial ruin. I scribbled down notes, piecing together a narrative that revealed a pattern of manipulation and deceit. It was like peeling back layers of an onion, each layer revealing a deeper, more painful truth. With each passing day, my resolve hardened. I started to reach out to more of Clarisse's acquaintances, each conversation adding to the tapestry of her life, a life riddled with failed promises and mounting debts. I learned of the emotional blackmail she wielded, how she would twist circumstances to position herself as the victim, drawing sympathy from those around her while hiding her true intentions. I began to understand that her claims against me were not just accusations, they were a diversion from her own shortcomings. The thought fueled my determination. I would not let her tarnish the love and care I had given to Harold all these years. As I pieced together her history, I couldn't help but feel a mix of sadness and anger. Clarisse wasn't just a stepdaughter, she was a reflection of what could have been, a daughter in every sense of the word. Yet, her choices had led her down a dark path, and I felt an overwhelming sense of responsibility to protect Harold from her grasp. The thought of her taking him away, of stripping him of his autonomy, ignited a fire within me that refused to be extinguished. The day I confronted a few of her acquaintances was a turning point. I had arranged a casual meeting over coffee, my heart pounding in anticipation. Each revelation they shared felt like a dagger aimed at the heart of Clarisse's facade. Their stories were laced with exasperation and disbelief at her behavior, painting a picture of a woman who was willing to do anything to get what she wanted. I could feel the weight of their words settling like a cloak over my shoulders, wrapping me in a sense of purpose. I was no longer just a devoted wife, I was a warrior defending her territory. It wasn't long before Clarisse caught wind of my investigation. I noticed the shift in her demeanor, the way she would cast furtive glances in my direction during family gatherings. Her attempts to intimidate me were subtle at first, a slight tightening of her lips or a flicker of her eyes that promised retribution. But with each threat veiled in her icy demeanor, I felt my own confidence swell. I was no longer afraid. I had unearthed her secrets, and now I had the power to expose them. The anger that had initially ignited within me transformed into a carefully crafted plan. I envisioned how I would present my findings, how I would lay bare the truth for all to see. The idea of revenge was not merely about retribution, it was about reclaiming my narrative, ensuring that Harold remained safe and surrounded by love. I became strategic, envisioning every step I would take, each move I would make to ensure that Clarisse's machinations would not succeed. As the days turned into weeks, I felt a sense of clarity wash over me. I was no longer the woman who would cower in the shadows, afraid of confrontation. I had become a force to be reckoned with, driven by love and the need to protect what was rightfully mine. The thought of standing up to Clarisse, of confronting her with the truth I had gathered, filled me with a sense of empowerment. I was ready for whatever she might throw my way, a battle was brewing, and I would not back down. As I stood in front of the mirror, the soft light filtering through the curtains illuminated the lines of worry etched across my face. Today was the day of the court hearing, a moment I had dreaded yet anticipated with a fierce determination burning within me. My heart raced as I adjusted my blouse, trying to find a semblance of composure. The weight of the situation pressed down on me, but I drew strength from the support of my friends, who had rallied around me in this dark hour. They believed in me, and for their sake, I couldn't falter. With each passing moment, I reviewed my notes, the evidence I had meticulously gathered against Clarisse. I recalled the late-night conversations with my friends, their encouragement echoing in my mind. They had urged me not just to defend myself, but to take the offensive and expose the truth hidden beneath Clarisse's carefully constructed facade. I was ready to fight, not only for Harold but also for the life we had built together, a life that Clarisse sought to dismantle. As I stepped into the courtroom, the air thickened with tension. My heart pounded like a drum, a rhythmic reminder of the stakes at play. The room was filled with an array of faces, some sympathetic, others curious. I caught a glimpse of Clarisse, seated at the front, her expression a blend of confidence and malice. She was ready to paint me as the villain, to twist the narrative in her favor. I could see the determination in her eyes, but it only fueled my resolve. I would not let her tear our lives apart without a fight. The gavel struck, echoing through the room, and I felt a shiver run down my spine. I took a seat, my palms clammy against the cool, polished wood of the table. Clarisse began her presentation, her voice dripping with false concern. She painted a picture of neglect and incompetence, depicting me as a woman overwhelmed by my own frailties, unfit to care for Harold. I listened intently, my heart racing, but my mind remained sharp. Each word she spoke was a thread in the tapestry of her deceit, and I was determined to unravel it. As she spoke, I felt a swell of anger rise within me. How dare she manipulate the truth so easily? The courtroom murmured at her claims, and I realized I was running out of time. I needed to seize my moment, to shift the narrative before it was too late. I could feel the eyes of the judge upon me, waiting, watching. The weight of their scrutiny was both terrifying and invigorating. I took a deep breath, steadying myself for what lay ahead. When the moment finally arrived for me to take the stand, a hush fell over the room. My heart raced as I approached, each step echoing in my mind. I could feel Clarisse's gaze burning into the back of my head, a reminder of her relentless pursuit to destroy everything I held dear. As I settled into the chair, I grasped the evidence I had prepared, the carefully collected pieces of Clarisse's life that would serve as my shield. With each word I spoke, the atmosphere in the courtroom shifted. I revealed the truth about Clarisse's financial troubles, her manipulations that had gone unnoticed for too long. I detailed her failed business ventures, the emotional blackmail she wielded like a weapon to get her way. With each revelation, I could see the shock spreading among the audience. Gasps echoed through the room, and I sensed the tide turning in my favor. The judge's expression shifted, the initial skepticism replaced by a glimmer of understanding. Clarisse sat there, her face paling as the truth unfolded before her. I could see the cracks in her facade, the carefully curated image of the devoted daughter crumbling under the weight of her own lies. My heart swelled with a mixture of triumph and sorrow. This was a battle for Harold, yes, but it was also a battle against the darkness that Clarisse represented, a darkness that threatened to consume us both. As I continued to present my case, detailing the love and care I had given Harold throughout our years together, I felt the courtroom shift even further. The judge leaned forward, engaged, and I knew I had struck a chord. This was not just about winning, it was about reclaiming our story, about ensuring that the love I had for Harold was recognized and respected. The atmosphere buzzed with anticipation, the air thick with unspoken words. I could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on me, but I was unyielding. Today, I would not just defend my honor, I would expose the truth and protect the man I loved, no matter the cost. As I sat on the witness stand, the weight of the courtroom pressed down on me, a tangible force that threatened to crush my resolve. The judge's gaze bore into me, and I could feel the tension radiating from every corner of the room. Clarisse had just presented her case, each carefully chosen word aimed to paint me as the villain in this tragic family drama. I could see the glances exchanged among the spectators, the faint whispers of disbelief as she spun her web of lies. But I was ready, armed with the truth and a fierce determination to protect Harold. Clarisse's voice trembled slightly, betraying the confidence she had tried so hard to project. As I took a deep breath, I could sense a shift in the atmosphere. My heart raced, but I steeled myself, channeling all the love I had for Harold into that moment. I had cared for him tirelessly through his illness, sacrificing my own needs to ensure he was comfortable, surrounded by the warmth of our shared memories. I could recount each small victory we had celebrated together, the laughter we had shared, and the quiet moments that spoke volumes about our bond. I had given him my all, and it was time to make that clear. The judge leaned forward, her interest piqued. I could see the flicker of sympathy in her eyes as I detailed the countless nights I had spent by Harold's side, the way I had managed his medications, and how I had navigated the labyrinth of healthcare to secure the best possible care for him. With each word, I painted a picture of our life together, one filled with love, dedication, and resilience. I could almost hear the shift in the room, the subtle change in the energy as the audience began to see the truth behind my actions. Clarisse's carefully constructed facade was crumbling. I could see her fidgeting in her seat, her fingers tapping nervously against the table. The confidence she had exuded earlier was fading, replaced by a growing sense of desperation. I pressed on, determined to expose the reality of her character. As I recounted the evidence I had gathered, the courtroom fell silent, every eye fixed on me. I felt empowered, the weight of my truth lifting me higher with each revelation. Suddenly, the judge interjected, her voice steady and authoritative. She asked Clarisse to respond to the allegations I had made. I watched as Clarisse's composure faltered, her mouth opening and closing as she struggled to find the words. The confidence she had displayed was gone, replaced by an uncertainty that was almost palpable. I couldn't help but feel a surge of satisfaction at seeing her flustered, her carefully crafted narrative unraveling before everyone's eyes. In that moment, I knew I was gaining ground. The judge, who had been stoic and impartial, now radiated a sense of engagement, her brow furrowing as she listened to Clarisse's stumbling defense. I could see the flickers of doubt crossing the judge's face, and it fueled my resolve. I had come too far to let Clarisse's dishonest tactics overshadow the truth of my commitment to Harold. As the hearing progressed, I felt a shift in the room, a collective inhale as everyone sensed the tide turning. The judge's demeanor softened, her eyes narrowing thoughtfully as she considered the weight of my words. I could sense the audience's changing perception, the shift from skepticism to understanding. The air was charged with anticipation, and I embraced it. I gathered my thoughts, focusing on the love that had guided my every decision. With each passing moment, I could feel the victory within reach, a bittersweet taste on the tip of my tongue. I had fought so hard to protect the life Harold and I had built together, and now, all the sacrifices, the sleepless nights, and the tears seemed worth it. I was ready to face whatever came next, ready to stand my ground against the woman who threatened to tear our family apart. The judge's gavel struck the desk, and I could feel the tremors of that sound reverberate through me. I was prepared for the final moments of this hearing, prepared to see the culmination of my fight manifest in her ruling. As I took a deep breath, I reminded myself that no matter the outcome, I had fought valiantly for the love of my life, and I would continue to do so, no matter what challenges lay ahead. As the judge's gavel struck the desk, the sound reverberated through the courtroom, slicing through the tension that had hung like a thick fog. My heart raced as I awaited the verdict, every second stretching into eternity. When the judge finally delivered her decision, a rush of relief washed over me like a cool breeze on a sweltering day. She denied Clarisse's request for Harold's interdiction. I closed my eyes for a moment, absorbing the news, my breath coming out in a shaky exhale. I had won this battle, but I knew deep down that the war with Clarisse was far from over. Clarisse's face morphed from a mask of smug confidence to one of sheer fury. Her lips pressed tightly together, and her eyes blazed with a fiery hatred that sent a shiver down my spine. I could almost feel the heat radiating off her as she stormed out of the courtroom, leaving the door to swing violently behind her. I stood there, frozen in place, the weight of my victory settling heavily on my shoulders. While my friends and supporters crowded around me, showering me with congratulations and hugs, I couldn't fully bask in the glow of my triumph. Clarisse was not the type to accept defeat gracefully. She would regroup, plot her next move, and I would have to be ready. That evening, Harold and I sat down for a quiet dinner at home, the atmosphere a sharp contrast to the chaos of the courtroom. The table was set beautifully, a small celebration of our victory, but the lingering sense of unease gnawed at me. I watched Harold as he smiled, his eyes lighting up at the simple meal I had prepared. His laughter, though soft and fragile, filled the room with warmth, creating a cocoon of safety around us. But even as I reveled in this moment, a shadow loomed in the back of my mind, the shadow of Clarisse and her impending retaliation. With every bite of food, I tried to shake off the nagging feeling that I was being watched, that Clarisse was somewhere plotting and scheming. I glanced across the table at Harold, his presence grounding me, reminding me of everything I had fought for. I wanted to savor this victory, to hold on to it tightly, but the reality was that the battle lines had been drawn. I could almost hear the echo of Clarisse's angry footsteps fading into the distance, promising that this was not over. As the night wore on, I found myself staring out the window, the moonlight casting silvery patterns on the ground. Every rustle of leaves outside made my heart skip a beat, my instincts on high alert. I had fought so hard to protect Harold, to ensure that he remained safe and cared for, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was merely one step ahead in a game that Clarisse was determined to win. The world outside felt ominous, the shadows stretching longer as if they were reaching for me, reminding me that danger was still lurking just beyond my doorstep. Harold reached over, placing his hand on mine. I felt the warmth of his touch seep into my skin, and for a brief moment, it quelled the storm of anxiety swirling inside me. I tried to focus on him, on the love we shared, and the life we had built together. Yet, the specter of Clarisse loomed larger, a constant reminder that she would not rest until she had her revenge. I vowed to myself that I would remain vigilant. I would not allow her darkness to seep into our lives again. As I watched Harold sip his wine, the way his eyes closed momentarily in pleasure, I made a silent promise to protect him at all costs. Whatever Clarisse had in store, I would be ready. I would face her with the same resolve that had seen me through the courtroom battle. The night wore on, but sleep eluded me, the tension coiling tighter in my chest. The victory felt bittersweet, and I knew that I needed to brace myself for whatever was to come. Days passed like a slow, heavy fog, each moment thick with the weight of anticipation. I found myself moving through the motions of daily life, making breakfast for Harold and tending to his needs, but my mind was elsewhere, consumed by the aftermath of the court hearing. Relief had washed over me after the judge's decision, yet an unsettling feeling lingered. I could not shake the sense that Clarisse was still out there, plotting her next move. Then, one afternoon, as I was sorting through the pile of mail that had accumulated on the kitchen counter, an envelope caught my eye. It was unmarked, the paper rough against my fingertips. Intrigued, I opened it cautiously, feeling a rush of adrenaline as I read the contents. The message was from an anonymous tipster, detailing a hidden scandal involving Clarisse. My heart raced as I absorbed the information. It spoke of financial fraud that could ruin her reputation and suggested that her significant debts were tied to illegal activities, operations she had managed to keep hidden beneath a veil of lies. A whirlwind of emotions surged through me. Part of me felt a sense of vindication, the other half was gripped by caution. Could this be true? I needed to verify the claims before taking any action. I spent the next few days digging deeper, using every resource at my disposal. I reached out to a few contacts I had made during my investigation, piecing together a clearer picture of Clarisse's dealings. The more I uncovered, the more convinced I became of the truth behind the tip. The thought of exposing her sent shivers down my spine. I knew what I had to do. The very core of my being urged me to take this information to the authorities. I envisioned the fallout, a domino effect that could not only protect Harold and me but also bring Clarisse to justice for her manipulative actions. She had tried to strip me of my dignity, my life, and now, the scales of justice were tipping in my favor. The day I finally walked into the police station felt surreal. My heart thudded heavily in my chest as I approached the counter. I explained my situation to the officer on duty, my voice steady despite the anxiety swirling within me. I handed over the evidence I had gathered, including the anonymous tip and my findings regarding Clarisse's financial activities. The officer listened intently, nodding as I spoke, his expression shifting from curiosity to concern. Hours later, as I returned home, a mixture of hope and dread clawed at my insides. I had done the right thing, I reminded myself. This was not just about revenge, it was about protecting Harold and reclaiming our lives from the clutches of a treacherous woman. I sat on the couch, staring at the wall, my thoughts racing. I imagined the police tracking down Clarisse, the weight of her actions crashing down upon her like a tidal wave. Then, just a few days after my visit to the police station, the shocking news arrived. I was at home, preparing dinner for Harold, when the doorbell rang. I opened it to find two officers standing there, their expressions serious. I felt a surge of adrenaline as I realized they had come for Clarisse. They informed me that she had been arrested for her fraudulent activities, the very crimes I had reported. As they led her away in handcuffs, I stood at the window, watching the scene unfold. Clarisse's face was a mixture of disbelief and anger, her eyes blazing with fury as she caught sight of me. In that moment, a bittersweet satisfaction washed over me. I had triumphed, but at what cost? I reflected on the journey that had brought me to this point, a fight fueled by love, vulnerability, and a fierce determination to protect what was mine. I could feel the weight of the darkness that had threatened to engulf my family lifting, replaced by a newfound sense of peace. I had not only defended Harold but had also reclaimed my own strength. As the officers drove away with Clarisse, I took a deep breath, my heart finally at ease.